Respected Hawaii economist Paul Brewbaker returned to EEAH to share his insightful economic analysis. Paul's presentation to EAH is presented in 5 videos, parts 1 to 4 and Q&A. Part 1 and 2 are focused on the uncertainty of Trump's economy and tariffs. Parts 3 and 4 are focused on Hawaii's economy and the impacts of the Lahaina Wildfire. In this first video, Paul covers Fed interest rate projections and 10 and 30-year Treasury Bonds, which are no longer following their previous downward trend. This results in continued high home mortgage rates, which keeps the housing markets depressed. He discusses recovery from COVID-caused inflation and the global supply chain breakdown. He then explains how Trump's tariffs can be expected to cause another supply chain shock and inflation, as it can be expected that businesses will pass through 70% of tariff costs to consumers.
Engineers and Architects of Hawaii has been meeting for over 120 years. The 1-hour lunchtime meetings on Fridays serves engineers, architects, technical professionals, and the public. We provide a venue for timely briefings and discussions of current and emerging technologies and important community issues. To continue to meet our goals, EAH needs the support from the community's technical professionals and the public. If you have or know of a relevant topic, contact EAH so we can arrange a date to present the topic at an EAH Friday meeting. Also, please join us at one of our live meetings, either in person or via Zoom. Past meetings are published on YouTube and on Hawaii's Olelo Community Television, Channel 53. Visit the EAH website for publications, information, and links. Mahalo.
Welcome to the Engineers and Architects of Hawaii, meeting since 1902. Here at the room 301 of Topa Tower on 4th Street Mall. First off, I do notice a guest.
My name is Amaris Gonzalez.
Where are you from?
I live in Eva Beach.
And what brings you to this meeting?
I'm representing Canaan alongside that.
Oh, I see. Welcome. And I see the other HGS shirt over here. I'm going to pass the mic to you as well.
My name is Raf. I think I attended one other meeting right before this one, but I'm also here to represent HGS and by proxy Canaan.
Welcome. Nice to see you guys. Everybody else looks like the regulars, so I think we're good on introductions. Any announcements for the group? Seeing none, we'll move on. As usual, we have our humorist in attendance, so I request Mac to say a few words if you can.
Oh, well, welcome again to the EAH humor column. A couple and their college kid, Fred, have taken a genealogy DNA test. Has taken a DNA test. The wife gets the DNA test results first and is shocked to see Fred's DNA does not match any of the family's DNA. Worried, she calls her husband and excitedly tells him, "Our DNA tests show Fred might not be our son." And he says, "Oh, obviously." And she says, "What do you mean?" He says, "It was your idea in the first place. Remember that first night at the hospital when the baby did nothing but scream and cry, and on and on? You said I needed to change him. And so I did. And I picked a good one." Very proud of Fred.
Well done. Thank you, Mac.
Paul has been here before in 2011, and I still remember one of the points that he made, and that was on our local airlines. When at that time we had Hawaiian and Aloha, and those were basically the only airlines that were serving the neighbor islands. And so he basically made the point that if you want to have competition, you need at least 3 companies to have a fair competition. 2 doesn't work. And he pointed out that in his office, he could see the advertisements for I don't know if it was Aloha or Hawaiian, who published, $90 to get to the main island. Then I've forgotten the airline that came in, and all of a sudden the fare dropped to 50, like overnight. But he's from Stanford, and I was going to ask him if he knew my best friend who went to Stanford in the 70s, and he came about that time, right? So maybe afterwards I'll ask you. And he's worked for a long time for Bank of Hawaii, and I remember on the news, I haven't seen him on the news recently, but
Good.
when he was with Bank of Hawaii, I mean, you'd see him like once a month, TV stations would call him up and say, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? So we're here today with him, and we're going to ask that question. Particularly, I'm interested in tariffs for Mr. Trump, and I think he's going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But he is the principal of TZ Economics, and he'll tell us about that as well. And he did get his PhD from the University of Hawaii, and I said he went to Stanford, and he has done graduate work from the University of Wisconsin and the university system. And he's a past president of the Hawaii Economic Association. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul.
Thanks for inviting me back. It's been a while. So with apologies to any Trump supporters today, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take on some of these policies and critique them. The theme here is mostly about uncertainty and its role in the economic outlook. But this is more just, 5 things I'm sort of curious about these days that I don't hear anybody else talking about. So let's jump right in. I do hear people talking about monetary policy, which let's see. Okay. Yeah, we'll start with just a quick mention of monetary policy. The Fed, as you know, Jay Powell has had things on pause. And you'll recall our expectation a year ago, or their expectation, their forecast in September of last year, was that having initiated the descent of the overnight interest rate target, they'd continue on through at a gradual pace to reach the neutral rate around 3% for the overnight rate by 2026. And then, of course, came tariffs and a number of other Doge and a variety of surprises that have created some inflation risks and have, as a consequence, led the Fed to press pause. Although, unlike the Trump administration that presses pause and then tacos and then presses pause again and then moves the deadline or whatever, they've been on pause now since the end of last year. I know people are hoping, certain people, of course, are hoping that the Fed will renew interest rate decreases in the coming September meeting. They chose not to in the meeting this week. Personally, I doubt it, and I think we're going to have to wait to see what the inflationary outcomes of the tariffs are.
I heard somewhere some of the stuff about inverting of the yield curve.
Not inverting, but well, you can see the curve. So implicitly, right, the longer term rates are higher than the short term rates. So the curve has a normal slope.
That's a signal for something.
No. A normal yield curve has a term premium that's positive, right? So you have to be compensated for parting with your money for a longer period. And you can see that if you just look at, I'll just jump ahead a couple of slides. If you just look at, where the 30 and the 10-year yields are right now, that spread has widened. So there's a systemic risk premium that's been about, 50 basis points. 25 to 50 basis points that's crept into the term structure because nobody knows what's going to happen to the economy. And I think most importantly, at the moment of what the president calls Liberation Day, but I call Obliviation Day, like in Harry Potter, because you have to obliviate all of your memories of economic theory, the presumed trajectory of interest rates has been put on pause, as I say. And the expectation among economists, at least as of last month, is that the neutral rate of 3% is still correct, but that this is the expectation for the 30-year mortgage rate by year end, and an expectation, in the mid 6s or upper half, about where we are right now. What are we at right now? 680, 670? I don't even know what the mortgage rate is, but the problem with not being able to see those rate declines continue, as as we all know, is that mortgage rates have remained high and the housing market remains kind of dormant. The inflation event from the supply chain, global supply chain breakdown in the context of this post-pandemic restart to the reboot to global economic activity after vaccines began to roll out. That inflation was pushed back on by the Fed, even though part of the roots of the inflation was the supply chain itself. And in principle, the Fed can affect the demand side of the economy. You can't really do anything about, where the container ships are. And therein lies the problem with tariffs, because again, it's a supply shock. It's not a demand shock, right? It's an increase in the cost of inputs. And for people that are using imported components in their manufacturing processes. And so the uncertainty with respect to inflation now has to do with the extent to which we'll see another one of these spikes out here, maybe not as big, but something that's rooted in the tariffs as they work their way through from production costs, which you've already seen if you look at the earnings reports from automakers. I think General Motors reported $1 billion write-down from higher costs of imported inputs, and we'll be seeing more of that in the retail supply chain and so on over the next several months. And then the extent to which there's pass-through to the consumer, typically the all-in, sort of the burn-in is about 70%. But right now, of course, retailers and distributors and producers, manufacturers are reluctant. So nobody wants to be the first guy to do the pass-through on the tariff. So for now, the shareholders are eating it. But eventually, eventually people are going to have, Nike and everybody else is going to have to figure out how much pass-through there is. So we'll see. I just mentioned that shaded area there. That's an idiosyncratic inflation surge we had. Nobody talked about it. I'm not sure why. That was because of the higher housing costs that followed the wildfires on Maui. So FEMA was writing checks for people for wildfire victims to house themselves, and because nobody's building houses on Maui, that temporarily boosted the inflation rate. We're sitting at 2.5% to 3%. The Fed's target this morning came in at 2.8, 2.9%. So again, because they're looking for a 2% inflation number, and we're closer to 3, with the risk of going higher, they're going to wait to make any more decisions on lower interest rates. And
now,
yeah,
Hawaii's the highest inflation in the nation, right?
No. This is Hawaii's inflation rate this spring, and there's the U.S. rate. So,
okay.
Yeah, about the same, 2.7, 2.8. Highest, well, among the higher costs of living, but that's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the solution to which is Amazon Prime.
In the next video, Paul warns the federal budget deficit has not been balanced in a quarter century. He explains Trump's focus is on the merchandise deficits, not the U.S. capital investments, which overall exceed the merchandise deficits by $415 billion. Trump's call for tariffs has caused the highest jump in the economic uncertainty index in 20 years.
I know I
gotta
should.
get back to work. We'll officially.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Sam's got some paperwork for you. So,
Oh, yeah, thank you.
but I don't know if you're available to take more questions.
Sure, I can hang around. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get your paper.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes.
For those of us with jobs, have fun. All right.
Yeah.
Engineers and architects of Hawaii welcome your comment on this program and any of our recent programs. We encourage your direct participation in this community outreach. So please email us your comments and ideas at eahawaii@gmail.com.